Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Nick Files. It's good to first have Wayne on this time after 2 weeks of absence.
Hi.
Today we're going to be catching up on what we were talking about last week. We're going to be talking about part 3 of the Super Outbreak. But before we do, I kind of also have a very quick special surprise guest that would like to make a quick appearance. So my dad's actually just right outside. If you want to come in right now, Deb.
Oh.
Nice.
Oh.
Madeline.
Hi, Madeline. Oh my God, gorgeous.
Hey, sweetie. You're being watched by
She's
people.
absolutely
Right
adorable.
She really is. She really is. I know she has no clue what's going on, but we'll save this as a video memory for her.
Definitely.
You want to
Hi,
say
Mr. Millie.
Hi.
It'll be one of those.
There's people talking to her. I think she thinks it's just part of the TV.
It'll be one of those moments that will come back to haunt her when she's 18 or 21, and you all sort of get the old photos out and go, "This is what you were like when you were a couple of months old."
It's over.
Oh, she's adorable. Madeline. Hiya, Cracker.
This is actually something I've been really wanting to do for a while, to get her on, make a cameo on one of these shows.
Oh, she's adorable. See, with her wee ears, her wee bunny ears. I loved it. Madeline.
So glad it's so late in the evening. My children can't photobomb the video.
I love it when the kids come on. Didn't it?
Yeah, it's always awesome. So it's my opportunity.
Oh, I'm so. That's made my heart burst tonight after the sort of day I've had. Hiya, Madeline. Madeline. Hiya, sweetie. She's like that. There's that Scottish woman again. Get me out of here. Oh, she's adorable.
She really is. She's what now? Over 3 months now? Almost 5 months now.
Is she? Listen, Nick, your dad will be as good as a witness in Wayne. They don't stay that small for long, and trust me, the years will fly in.
You have no idea how many pictures I've taken so far. Her, since she's been born, a little over 4 months ago, that probably the other 3 kids combined. back because we used to have to put everything with cameras, with film, with the digital cameras now. It's one picture. We have our whole life documented so far.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really dead sweet.
I had to free up loads of space on my Facebook and my phone for pictures of my children as they were growing up. And I'm like, did I put that picture on Facebook so I know I've got it? And Ellen would say, yeah, you've got it. And when I go to my gallery, there'll be like 1,000 photos of my children. And I'll be like, which one did I put on Facebook?
Do you know, I've got a picture of my boy, and it is my favourite picture. And I would probably get done for cruelty. But I've got a picture of my boy in the washing basket. I put him in the wash basket and he loved it.
I know it's a little bit bright, but you can't really see it too well.
A couple thousand pictures at least so far.
Oh, bless.
Okay, well, it's nice seeing you.
You want to say goodbye?
Madeline, say bye-bye.
Bye. You can come anytime, sweetheart.
Come over here. There you go.
Bye-bye.
I can't
Bye,
say for sure
Madeline.
can't say for sure what her future is going to be, but maybe she'll be our future next podcast host for these networks.
Listen, she could probably run her podcast better than I can.
Just wanted to introduce you guys that. So that's first ever for.
There you go. The baby podcast.
Yeah.
Bit first.
You got a good point.
Madeline's distracted me and I can't even remember what groups I've shared to. So if I do double share, I am so sorry. I get distracted with Madeline.
I mean, that happens sometimes.
Yeah. So it'll be like 3 shares to somewhere and 1 share to another group, and that'll be it.
And that's it. It's like all your ideas just vanished.
Aye. I seen Madeline and that was it. Out the window.
I gotta still share this actually. I mean, I'll share it when I show one of the videos, but I still gotta send this to the Super Outbreak page. Yeah, if Wayne, if you didn't know, I mean, as you're doing your research on this, there actually is a Facebook page about the Super Outbreak itself, and it's where many of the survivors or people who grew up that era who put their stories. And I actually have quite an interesting story to tell about that one once we get to the next tornado. So, but without further ado, let's carry on from where we were last week. So we were talking about the last one that happened in Louisville, and but of course, even though this one hit after the one that hit Louisville, it was definitely not over later that day because we were actually listening to a full radio report about this last week. What did you think of that radio broadcast that I played, Lois?
Yeah, it was really, really good. Really, really scary. But at the end, I would say it was the most scariest because you're wondering what. I kind of went off that broadcast, kind of wondering what the hell had happened, whether because it kind of gives you that fear that obviously that person's been soaked up, or the tornado. So it was quite daunting.
Well, not
but
only
it was
that,
really, really interesting.
well, even more fascinating, like we talked about last week too, is the report with Dick Gilbert. You know, who was really on the scene. That reminds me. I told you there was a famous line that he said we weren't. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think I'm going to be able to get that up. I'll see if I can try to get it up right before we end. But I tried putting on the slideshow, but for some reason it wasn't working. But let's just carry on. Like I said, we'll try to. Oh, wait a second. Hang on. Something went wrong here. I don't know what happened, but oh wait. Okay, hang on. I got this mixed up. This was a huge slideshow. This was, you know me. This was another huge slideshow to put together, and a lot of times there's always going to be hidden mistake. Just want to get to the comments real quick too while I'm doing this. Hello, Sarah Louise.
Oh, Sarah Louise. I'm going to sing for you tomorrow night.
Josh saw Madeline. If you guys just missed, for anyone, Scott back from her circle, listen up. If you guys missed out the last few minutes, I really wish you could have been there because my niece just made her little debut appearance on this show. So you'll have to go back and watch the recorded. I mean, watch it recorded later. Oh, this also reminds me too. I'm going to put this on the opposite way when I did the slideshow because I remember I had you guys couldn't hear any sound before, so I want to make sure this time it does. So anyways, now we can continue. So after when we were talking about Louisville, here's the thing what happened next. Just 10 minutes after the Louisville tornado had touched down and beginning its path of destruction through the city, another monster tornado had formed further north back up in Indiana. This historic and half-mile wide F4 tornado developed as part of a tornado family that moved from Illinois to Michigan for 260 miles during the late afternoon hours. This tornado, get this is another notorious one too. It produced the longest damage path recorded during the 1974 super outbreak on a southwest to northeast pass that nearly crossed the entire state of Indiana. According to most reports, including the presented map of North Indiana, this tornado formed just 2 miles west of Otterbein in northeastern Warren County in west central Indiana at 4:47 p.m. and ended in LaGrange County, just northwest of Valentine in Fort Wayne. Probably not too far, actually, that I'm thinking about. Probably not far from where Jeremy lives. That total distance was about 121 miles. So just an insane damage path. Further analysis by Ted Fujita, who was the inventor of the Fujita scale, indicated that at the start of the tornado path near Otterbein, downburst winds, also called twisting downbursts, disrupted the tornado's inflow, which caused it to briefly dissipate before redeveloping near Brookston in White County. That's where I was just at 2 weeks ago at around 4:50 p.m. and then traveled for 109 miles. The tornado grew to F4 strength within moments of its formation and leveled a home, killing 2 occupants north of Otterbein. After weakening a bit passing near Chalmers, intensification began again as it entered Monticello. It also struck portions of 6 other counties, with the hardest hit being White County and its town of Monticello. The funnel ripped right through downtown. Much of the town was destroyed, including the county courthouse, some churches and cemeteries, 40 businesses, and numerous homes, as well as 3 schools. It also heavily damaged the Penn Central Bridge, over the Tippecanoe River. Overall damage, according to the NOAA, was estimated at $250 million, with $100 million in Monticello alone. Other communities, such as Rochester and Ligonier, were hard hit. And now these are from what I was able to research, these were the only known photos of not necessarily the tornado itself, but the storm itself that produced it. The wall cloud does make an appearance, but for whatever reason, no photographs of the actual tornado itself were taken. And these were taken, believe it or not, right over, I don't know if it was in this, well, actually, no, it's in the same area. These were taken near Purdue University. But you can see that's, like I said, that's clearly again, no photos or film footage of the tornado is known to exist. But yeah, this is, once again, like it has been with some of the other images, you can see the wall cloud, which has that look of the base of a layer cake developing. And then here it is once again. This is probably the more famous photo. I believe at this point, this was when the storm was moving northeast and just barely missing the main campus of Purdue University. Give me 1 second here, guys, because I'm, like I said, at the same time while I'm doing this, I'm also sharing this out onto the Super Outbreak page.
Seeing the second photo, it just kind of reminds me of Fallout when the bomb drops.
Oh, really?
It's just that picture, But again, it's quite scary to think that how much damage a tornado can actually cause. And I can understand how loud that they are, because I kind of done an experiment where I put headphones on while listening to what a tornado sounds like, and oh my god, I don't know how.
Well, and considering that I've heard it myself, because we've had because again we had the tornado warnings a few. Oops, sorry, that was the wrong one. Since we had a tornado warning, back in February, I definitely heard that roar that it makes, and I know I probably said this before, but when they say it sounds like a locomotive, it sounds like 10 or 20 of them. I mean, it's just a tremendous roar. And it's just a noise that you will just never forget.
They say it's like also the sound of the pressure inside the house being changed by the tornado going past outside. It's sucking the air out of the house. Yes. And it's all of the air going through and particles going through whatever gaps or holes there are in the building.
Absolutely.
Over here, we've got air bricks in the foundations here. So it would be the air literally going through floorboards and out through the air bricks, and that sound would be generated through that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that it's mainly because of that pressure. And the other thing too, when it comes to like the debris and whatnot, I mean, you also, like, a lot of times you think of a tornado obviously as wind, and it's just not. Obviously, it's dirt and it's glass and it's twisted metal and it's broken trees and parts of cars and signs and houses, and just like in Wizard of Oz, people are just seeing things flying around.
And we've all pretty much, I think everybody must have at some point seen the video footage of the cow being picked up by the tornado. It's been on quite a few programs here, where the tornado has gone through a farm and it's picked up cows, and you see a cow going just around the outside edge of the tornado.
I've seen that video. I think that was shot up down in Kansas, if I'm correct.
I'm not too sure where it was, but I'm just like sitting there thinking to myself, oh my word, you can understand cars and that, but then when you actually see livestock going up in the air and flying around, and you're like, okay.
Tornadoes can really do some of the strangest things. I mean, you probably may have heard some of this. Like, there was like one famous story of a tornado that picked up a jar of pickles for 25 miles and literally left it like without ever breaking it. There was another one I remember hearing where it plucked the feathers off a chicken, leaving the naked bird alive. I mean, it can really give some of the most strangest behavior ever. So, but that's not unfortunately, in the case with the Monticello tornado, that wasn't the case, because after the tornado struck Monticello, the tornado reached peak F4 strength and completely leveled several farms northwest of town. Death and damage continued along the track as the tornado swept through farms and small towns. The tornado then went on to tear through the west side of Rochester, where businesses were destroyed and homes were completely leveled and swept away. Riddle Elementary School was badly damaged as well. The tornado then struck Talma, destroying most of the town, including a fastening plant in the schoolhouse. The tornado continued northeast and struck the south sides of Atwood and Leesburg, with additional severe damage occurring at both locations. The tornado then crossed Dewart Lake and Lake Wawasee, destroying multiple lakeside homes and trailers. The Wawasee Airport was hard hit, where hangars were destroyed and planes were thrown and demolished. The tornado destroyed several buildings as it passed through Ligonier and Topeka, including Perry Elementary School and a Monsanto plant. Train cars near the plant were blown off the tracks and thrown into the building. The tornado then finally dissipated near Oliver Lake Airfield at 6:47 p.m. after being on the ground for 2 hours. So that's definitely one of the longest durations. But unfortunately, a total of 18 people were killed during the storm, including 5 people from Fort Wayne, when their minibus was thrown by the tornado and fell 50 feet into the Tippecanoe River near Monticello. One passenger did survive the fall, but was carried by the river's current. Eventually, she was able to reach a riverbank, but would later come to find out she was the only survivor, as the other passengers and driver had drowned. And that survivor, she's been on, recently, but about almost 20 years ago now, she was featured on at least 2 different National Geographic documentaries about the super outbreak. I honestly don't even know if she's still alive today, but she was then, and she gave a very, very clear detail of what she went through during that whole situation in this minibus. Now, 5 others were killed in White County, 6 in Fulton County, and 1 in Kosciuszko. I don't even know how. I'm just butchering that name right now in that county. But the National Guard had assisted the residents in the relief and cleanup efforts, and then Governor Otis Brown visited the area days after the storm. One of the few consolations from the tornado was that a century-old bronze bell that belonged to the White County Courthouse and served as timekeeper was found intact despite being thrown a great distance. Now, before I continue, because I know this is when we're going to get okay, yep. Before we continue, this is when I said I got a story to tell you guys. So, Lois, you remember when we had that one survivor who was watching part 1?
Yeah.
Okay. So I thought I should tell you, she was a survivor of this tornado. So this
is right.
No, what were you going to say?
Is this her account on?
Yes, this is her account.
Smashing.
It is a little long, but just bear with me because I think you guys are going to find this really fascinating. All right, just before I do, I need to. They got to have my water bottle here, so it's starting to parch up. Okay, so what she sent me was here we go. I lived in Silver Lake, Indiana at the time. It is about 20 miles from Rochester, 12 from Talma, and 15 from Atwood. Third recess had a weird feel to it. We were outside for one. First, and lunch, we were in the gym. We had no coats on, and it was really warm and humid. It was a thin layer of clouds, letting most of the sun through, but looked hazy, and the air felt thick. Later on at home, the news came on at 5. My parents' reaction as Mom was leaving for her home ec club meeting was no concern, so they may have not known what was coming our way from Monticello. The weatherman with WNDU 16 South Bend just came on at 5:20, and our power was out. That was when the tornado was hitting Rochester. It was raining and some lightning before that at about 5. It really got intense 5 minutes after the lights went out. Wind started whipping our 14-year-old maple trees, twisting them. Then the wind got stronger as the sky darkened. Those trees started to actually bend at the base, and our dad started getting us down to the basement. While hunkered in the southwest corner, which I'm sure, because I don't know if you guys heard, back in those days, the southwest corner of the basement was the primary area of safety, which, although being in a basement is the safest place to be during a tornado, that being in the southwest corner wasn't always the bright idea because that's where sometimes windows were. So while hunkered in the southwest corner, no is a big fat no-no these days, as she says, I could see out the one basement window, and the sky was black with constant lightning. This lightning I had never seen before, but unfortunately, because I am a trained weather spotter and have chased a few of them, it was as if the sky was totally electric and bolts were shooting everywhere. It seemed to last for an hour. My brother John got home in time for the 9 p.m. news, and he and Dad hooked up his TV to the port in his van to watch the news. I guess my brother saw some of it and told Dad, and he wanted to see the news. I stayed in the house, my younger sister. Mom finally got home, and the adults told us girls what happened. Fast forward, we actually drove to see the damage near Rochester, and following the path to Atwood, high tension towers crumpled like tin, insulation strewn through fences, and tree limbs that managed to not be stripped of the trees. I actually saw a bathtub in a tree that managed to not fall over. The usual impalement of straw and tree trunks, 2x4s into the sides of buildings, and everyday household items like eating utensils and both. Some cleanup had been done, but there would be a dead animal here and there. I dared not to look too close to those because, oh wow, I haven't even read this full story, so this is kind of taking me away, blowing me away. I dared not to look too close to those because Palm Sunday, tornado stories hit several Amish communities, which I might talk about maybe next year because that'll be the 60th anniversary. Before the 1974 outbreak, there was another infamous tornado outbreak that struck Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio, and parts of Illinois. That was the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak of 1965, and it's also in April. But at that time, the 1965 Palm Sunday outbreak was considered the big one before the super outbreak of 74. So that's why she brought it up, because this obviously triggered a lot of memories for those who survived the 1965 outbreak. When we got to Toma, that school was a weird sight to see. Roof of the school and gym were gone. Bricks from the outside walls were everywhere. You could actually see into the northeast corner of the second floor because 2 outside walls were gone. The floor was intact. Desks all in a row and papers and chalkboards on the remaining walls were still in place. I worked years later with a girl that lived in the brick house next to the school. She said that her house's bricks were intact, but her roof was gone, and bricks from the school were all inside her house. Heading toward Atwood, I saw a house that appeared okay, except that the tornado had picked it up and turned so that the front door was in the back and the patio door was in the front. My God. Jeez. I found out later they were relatives of my dad's. The biggest thing about Atwood is Creighton Brothers. They have many chicken farms for the egg company. Most of their chicken farms were demolished, and most of their laying hens sadly were killed. The ones that survived were featherless, just like I brought up about the strange behavior.
Oh my God.
You could still see feathers everywhere in the fields and yards surrounding those farms. The tornado only caused one death, and it was in Atwood. A migrant worker had a relative visiting from Mexico. They were in a trailer, and that relative was sadly killed. That tornado went on to Leesburg and onward. For years, just north of Leesburg to the west of Street Road 15, there is a tree line between 2 fields along the fence line. All of those trees were permanently bent at an angle in the same direction from the winds from that tornado. This is my memory of that day and the Sunday drive following it. So that was her story. Kelly O'Hara Smith, who submitted that to me, I definitely would. I don't know if she's watching, but I definitely would like to thank her for sending me this incredible detailed account.
I must admit, I wasn't laughing. I was just laughing about the feathers, because I can imagine these feathers being everywhere. But do you know what really blows me my mind about, obviously, the super outbreak in 75?
74.
Do you know what 74? Sorry. Do you know what really blows my mind? You would expect for all these tornadoes and for how many there was across all the states that they hit, you would expect to have much higher death rate than what you got.
Exactly.
That's a bit that's.
Yeah, I mean, you would expect the death rate to have been a lot higher. I mean, you compare it to nowadays where you've got sort of like a relatively early warning system. So less people would die nowadays compared to then. But you would have thought that at that time in the afternoon, you would have thought a lot more people would have lost their lives. I mean, there were a lot of fatalities, but, there was even more injured. There was something like over 5,400 odd people injured.
That's correct.
Result, but quite low in comparison to the amount of dead, and you would have expected it to have been a lot higher.
Well, and not to mention, I mean, when you look at an outbreak like this, I mean, especially since this occurred back in the 70s, we would have expected, I mean, yes, some areas did have early warning systems, is what we were talking about last week, but there were many other areas where they still didn't have warning. And it's really surprising that although the death tolls were really high in each of the areas that were affected, it was still crazy to think that it didn't go as high, because an outbreak like this, we would have, especially back then, we would have at least expected, 500, 600, maybe even 1,000 lives lost. But instead, it wasn't even like that, because even back then, this was also a day where a lot of people had just gotten off of school or, just got off work. So therefore, they were either walking or they were driving. They were outside. They were looking at the sky, and they knew something was wrong. If it wasn't taking place in the 70s, I mean, obviously, it was still pretty bad for the 1965 Palm Sunday outbreak. But, if this was 50 or 60 years ago, even further back, the chances of a death toll like that would have definitely been higher back then.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, you compare it to nowadays where you've got the early warning systems on your cell phones and that.
Yep.
If you've got a tornado pending for that area, you're warned, aren't you?
Yes.
So in advance that the weather's not going to be good. It's going to start turning. It could turn into tornado-style weather. And so you're more alert. And you've got that, like we say, the early warning systems are a lot better now than what they were 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So you would have a lot more warning, and you would have more time to sort of get somewhere safe.
Absolutely.
Than what you would have done then.
I actually have to refrain what I said. I said 50 years ago was the 70s. I guess I meant to say like 60, 70, 80 years like for further past. But no, you're absolutely right. And I was actually discussing something similar like that too during the first part, because like the other problem was, and again, not to bring up some of the same info that I said for part one, the radar we had back in those days is nowhere compared to what we have now, because they were usually better for designing air traffic, and they were just, as people would say, they looked like big green blobs on the radar. It didn't really show a good detailed description if a tornado was on the ground. It was just that back then you had to rely on storm spotters. So it was only when a tornado was seen by a storm spotter on the ground that a tornado warning could be issued then.
And that's why Elsa liked the fact that they had that across radio stations, because not many people have TVs. Many people probably then listen to the radio. Like, for prime example, last night when you had the warnings, and you're always the weatherman for Dawn.
Yeah.
It got me thinking, obviously, like, to have like a broadcast over the radio like that's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. But speaking of, all these different tornadoes that struck, so now we're really going to start expanding. So as evening approaches, tornadoes begin hitting the southern United States. National news broadcasts only cover the damage in Xenia, however, without realizing tornadoes are still touching down. Which, Wayne, since you weren't here for part two last week, this town I'm talking about called Xenia, which is in Ohio, that was actually the most notorious tornado of the entire outbreak. It's the most heavily studied tornado. So it, even back when this was all occurring, Xenia got the most attention than all the other tornadoes did. People in the southern states don't understand the danger they're in as the most severe storms of the outbreak close in. In Mississippi, severe activity was reported between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m., including one tornado and several funnels aloft. Large hail and local wind damage affected 6 counties in the extreme eastern part of the state. At 5 p.m., a tornado, which was an F3 and the only tornado of the outbreak to have struck the state, touched down and carved a 12-mile path across Jones County. The tornado skipped along its path along the Mississippi countryside, in which it destroyed a home and 30 farm buildings, causing 1 injury. Many of these farm buildings were housing thousands of chickens that were being used. Sadly, the tornado destroyed most of them, once again, just like in Monticello, killing 15,000 chickens in the process. Jeez. The F3 twister also damaged 33 other buildings and a trailer. The tornado then veered northeast, and dissipated. No one was killed, but damage was estimated at $150,000. But now, additionally, at this time, the action also began shifting from eastern to middle Tennessee, as a tornado rated an F2 developed to the northeast of Nashville at about 5:18 p.m. It then moved across the southeast of Nashville, causing significant damage by tearing apart and unroofing large homes, trailers, and businesses. The F2 tornado also heavily damaged the Edgeo Lake subdivision. The tornado had one of the shortest paths, as it only stayed on the ground for 4 miles before abruptly dissipating. One heart attack victim was reported during the storm, but the victim managed to survive, and property damage exceeded $500,000. Yeah, that was.
Sorry to jump in, Nick. I've just realised I can't see the comments.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's the problem basically, because what I did was here. What we'll do quickly, because this is the only way we're going to be able to see comments. What we'll do is just kind
sorry. It's just dawned on me. I was like that, and I'm looking, and I'm like, how can Nick see the comments and I can't? Because usually I back them up for you, and then I'm like that.
Because
I can't see them.
Because I was doing the slideshow. I was doing the slideshow in a different way, so that way.
No.
Yeah,
honey, I still could see it last week. Know what it is? It's because I'm not signed into Jeremy York's StreamYard.
I can see the comments.
Well, no. See, what I was going to explain. It's because due to the fact that I was presenting it in a different way through StreamYard. That way, if I was showing a video, you guys would be able to hear it this time, because I had to go through with a different method.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll just look at my phone and I'll shout comments out.
I got the comments right here, so we're good. Josh said that they had one tornado last summer overnight. It was terrifying. I can't imagine, Josh.
Wow.
Hey, Robert. Good to see you.
Hey, Robert.
Hello, Rita. Hey, Irene.
Hey, Irene.
Robert says they had sirens in different areas. Yeah, good morning. Yeah, good morning to you as well. And Irene just also said, we get tornadoes too. It's mostly where the land is flat, and that's why we don't have wind electricity.
Oh, well.
I mean, I've said to you before, Nick, that apparently, according to the British Met Office, they are claiming that the UK actually get more tornadoes per year per square mile than the United States do. The only problem is that ours hardly register on the Fujita scale.
Yeah, you guys usually, I said this to Lois last time, you guys get more of the weaker tornadoes.
Yeah.
And
we get a lot of sea spouts as well.
Yeah, the water spouts, which is not surprising. I mean, you guys get the water spouts, but a lot of times I've done my research on tornadoes that hit the UK and other parts of Europe. A lot of them are weak. I mean, the strongest you guys might get is maybe an F2, but most of them are usually in the F0, F1 range. And again, I know I've said this before, but the last major tornado outbreak like that was F3 or plus that ever struck the UK was back in 1954. And that was when 7 different tornadoes struck downtown London. And that was the last. That I think that was. I don't think it ever got up to F4 or F5, but I think at least a few of them were F3 intensity. So that was the last time that the UK experienced really a major tornado outbreak.
Yeah, I remember working in a town nearby to me, a place called Sudbury. I had to go and work at a house. And when I got there, I said to the guy, I heard you had a tornado here last week. And he went, have a look out my back window. So I went through to his kitchen and looked out into his back garden, and there wasn't one there. And all you could see was where the tornado had touched down in this field, and it made its way towards this man's house. It entered his back garden, took his greenhouse and half of his garden,
Oh
then
my
went
God.
through into neighbour's garden, then the next one down, then went back out into the field and then dispersed. And he
That's
said
incredible.
literally everything we did. He said we didn't even find the greenhouse. The greenhouse had disappeared and he never found it.
Jeez. That's what some of these tornadoes do, is that they make things literally disappear.
Yeah. Well, it just shows the power of even a small tornado, the power that it possesses.
It does.
Is phenomenal.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like a lot of people also think that the smaller, more weaker tornadoes, like let's say this one, for example, won't do a lot of damage, or they aren't dangerous. And that's totally untrue. They are just as dangerous as the strong ones, because a small tornado can knock over a tree, can fall through a house, and it can kill somebody. A small tornado could, obviously flip a car over. That could kill someone immediately, especially if they're hit, hard, head first. But in spite of that, still, most people die from the larger tornadoes, though, the F4 and F5 tornadoes, because those ones usually have wind speeds of over 300 miles per hour. They are so, but this one right here, although it's weak, definitely, this would be one that would not to be trusted at all. I just also want to bring a quick side note, because I just wanted to do a little quick side note on something about that, because again, I brought it up several times about this outbreak that occurred in the UK back in 1954. It's real short. 7 tornadoes were confirmed that happened on December 8th of 1954. 7 tornadoes were confirmed that day over England, and in particular over the western parts of the greater London area, where 3 tornadoes, one of them caused F3 damage from Gunnersbury to Southgate, were confirmed. In total, there was 1 F3, 4 F1s, and 2 F0s, but surprisingly, there were no injuries or fatalities.
Oh, Jesus.
I thought there were deaths, but turned out I was wrong on that. So that's kind of a rarity. So this isn't the only image I have of this tornado. A few other pictures were taken of this as well. So here, check this out.
Jeez.
It's going right over the edges of Nashville.
Look at the color of the sky.
I think that's the sun setting. That's why it has that kind of pinkish. I don't know maybe it's either it's just the quality of the camera, but I think that might be the sun setting. So that's why it has that pinkish look to it. And if then that's not enough, here's where they were taken from another distance, going right over like I said, right over the edges of Nashville.
Jeez, oh.
And then these ones are my favorites. At one point, I don't know if the tornado actually did this, but it almost appears that either the tornado split into 2 smaller vortices, or there were actually 2 tornadoes that touched down.
Sisters.
Yep, that's right, sisters.
I must admit, I love the black and white one. The black and white one, that is my... It almost looks like it's... And I hate this world. Hate this world, demons. But it looks like kind of like 2 demons circling each other.
I was actually thinking more like 2 demons dancing around almost, because this is kind of similar to multiple vortices.
I don't know, it reminds me of legs from the Martians in War of the Worlds.
Yeah. There actually is a similar picture, which again I'm sure I'll cover sometime in a future episode, with a tornado that had multiple vortices. That was the Gerald, Texas tornado that struck back in May of 1997. And there is a famous picture of when the tornado showed its multiple vortex structure. And the photographer that took those pictures was at the right place in the right time, because at one point 2 multiple vortices were going around. And if you look at the picture, it literally almost looks like legs. And that photo became known as the dead man walking. And that was also one of the worst tornadoes to have ever struck the state of Texas. But yeah, there's a photo very similar like this, but that tornado in Gerald that ended up going to take 27 lives, and which was unheard of back then because by then that was the 90s. You know, we would have had better warning system then. But if that wasn't enough, these photos I got here, I almost forgot. I got 2 other pictures of them. This was probably when the Nashville tornado was dissipating. But I was going to say, if that wasn't enough, I also have film footage of this tornado. So check this out. Oh wait, hang on a second. There's music playing. I don't want to get us copyrighted. But here's the footage. Check this out. I know you can't see it too well because of all the trees, but the tornado is right behind those. Oh, there we go. Now I can get a clearer view. I think that was when it was at its largest base or width. And this is also kind of one of those more classic shaped tornadoes because it had that cone look to it. But not very long footage, but definitely very interesting. So unfortunately, if that wasn't bad enough, several hundred miles up north, once again back up in Indiana, another monstrous tornado is about to begin its path. And this one too has photographs. Here's one of the first ones. This was called the Cincinnati Sailor Park tornado. It was among a series of tornadoes that earlier struck portions, and this is crazy to think, of southern Indiana from north of Brandenburg, Kentucky, and into southwest Ohio. It was also noted for the rarity in that its path was in parts of 3 states. The tornado was only one of 2 F5 tornadoes in recorded history to have traveled through 3 states. The other being the infamous tri-state tornado that devastated locations in Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana on March 18th, 1925, which to this day marks as the deadliest tornado in U.S. history. That one I'm going to be eventually making a presentation on for next year, because next year will mark the 100th anniversary of that tornado. But in this case, with the Cincinnati Sailor Park tornado, which had a much shorter path length than the tri-state tornado, traveled through portions of Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. It was considered, and interestingly enough, this was also considered the most photographed and filmed tornado of the outbreak. It began shortly before 5:30 p.m. in southeastern Indiana in Ohio County, north of Rising Star near the Ohio River. It then traveled through Boone County, Kentucky, producing F4 damage in the Taylor Sport area before crossing the Ohio River a second time into Ohio and reaching its peak intensity in the western suburbs of the Cincinnati metropolitan area and roars on through Hamilton County. At the Cincinnati airport, the National Warning System alerts Leora Macaron, the county civil defense director, and sounds the tornado sirens. For the first time in 17 years, the civil defense sirens are sounding in earnest at WCKY, the local emergency broadcast system. Here, the tornado reached F5 intensity as it slammed into Sailor Park at the western edge of the city, where F5 damage occurred, moving to the northeast at 50 miles per hour. The first area of town hit was the Moorhead Marina, where numerous boats were thrown and destroyed. A large floating restaurant barge at this location was lifted, ripped from its moorings, and flipped by the tornado. It was later recovered several miles downstream. A nearby house was lifted from its foundation and thrown into the river. Here's one of the other photographs I have. Just want to share that just before. Look at this one right here as it's going through downtown. And then right below it, you see 3 people just standing there watching it. It's crazy to think of.
beyond belief, isn't it? You'd stand there on your rooftop, knowing full well it's going to be difficult to get down. If that tornado was to turn at a moment's notice, they would be powerless to do anything to get out of its way.
Definitely.
That's the thing that fascinates me about human beings. You know, it's this stand there, and you see it on YouTube all the time. All the people just stand there, whether it's a tsunami, whether it's a tornado, with the phones out, looking. Never mind what's coming towards you. It's just
especially today, But here are
wow.
But here are some obviously here are some photographs. This was probably when the tornado was at its peak intensity at F5. And once again, these are some pretty scary images of the tornado itself.
F5s must be the scariest things alive.
Well, and here's the thing: usually an F4 or F5 tornado usually is incredibly rare, but the amount of F5s that occurred that day in 1974 was just, even still to this day, is unbelievable. Because when it comes to, well, what we now call the enhanced Fujita scale, where we call them EF0s to EF5s, even today, when it comes to an EF5 tornado, only one tornado in 1,000 generates that power. So, and I got some more pictures of it. That's not all of them. This is when I believe this was when it was going through Sailor Park. And it does, and once again, I mean, it may not look that big, but you also have to remember, just because a tornado doesn't always look huge or a wedge shape, that doesn't mean it could still create a huge amount of destruction. So looks can definitely be deceiving.
Well, especially when you've got wind speeds of up to 318 miles an hour on an F5.
Yeah.
You know, you can only dream of doing that speed on the ground. You know, you might be able to get that speed in an aircraft, but not on the ground, you're not. And to see something like that come hurtling towards you, generating those sort of speeds, you know they're going to cause damage.
Yeah, definitely. This photo right here, I just recently discovered. So again, it was kind of a good thing we didn't cover this tornado last week, because again, it's always amazing when you're able to find new photographs. So, and this right here is, I believe, when it was going near the edges of Cincinnati.
Oh my God, man.
Oh, this is probably the most intense photograph of the tornado itself. This one right here, this was when it was in Cincinnati. This was another infamous photo that was featured in a lot of newspapers after the outbreak. Just crazy just to see how it's like kind of curving like that. And then, oh yes, and once again, I have film footage of this tornado. So there's a couple different pieces of footage. Like I said, this was the most photographed and filmed tornado of the outbreak. So this is once again good quality of wait, hang on a second. Hold on. It's doing that thing again. I hate when this happens. Give me 1 second here. If you want to go through the comments, Lois, go right ahead while I get this fixed.
Right, I'll go on my phone then, because as I said, I can't see the comments.
I put it back up I put it back up.
Even, all right, I'll tell you what, I know what I could do. Low. Aha! Here we are. I can't see any of your comments, my darling.
Well, that's odd. I put it back to the main studio. You can't see here. Let me try clicking on you see a comment now, or? Yeah,
I can see the comment because you're hitting it, but as I said to you, it's not letting me in StreamYard. It's got me. But I'll tell you what, I'll show you a picture because it's easier for me to do it that way than.
I think I might know what might have happened. You probably were you were probably logged out of StreamYard.
Yeah, because Jeremy's changed the email
was changed.
I was going to say
Uh,
the last one I've got here on the live feed is Robert Fulton says that these tornado chasers must be nuts doing that.
It may seem crazy, but it is true. I mean, some people are obviously doing this for thrills, but there are many others out there that are trying to gather information about tornadoes, as well as to create a better warning system. Real quick, Lynn is going now. So Lynn, have a good night.
bye,
Take
my
care.
darling.
Robert says
It's
that
all
they
right.
usually congregate around my house.
The missus opens her mouth. Oh, you've got to get 2 black eyes, my son. So that's me sacked as Nick's PA tonight. I'm bloody useless. And the best thing is, I should have signed in because obviously, when I do podcasts, right, Stephen just got a U tablet. So I've signed in the U tablet under Jeremy's StreamYard, and I've just clicked on, I'm using the Wayne's tablet.
Oh, guys, I'm
That's
still looking
why.
for that footage.
What a donkey. So I'm sacked. That's me thrown down the ladder. Wee Madeline will be taking my spot on a Wednesday night.
Hold on a second, guys. I don't know what happened, but apparently I can't find the footage that I had. Just give me another minute here. I should have it back up.
He does this all the time.
Well, I don't know what it is sometimes when it comes to these presentations. Like whenever I have these videos ready, for some reason whatsoever, some of these videos just disappear. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. I'm not sure why it does that. It's really bizarre. But I'm downloading the footage once again so I have it. So this will just take another minute. So just bear with.
Oh, wait till I tell you something funny last night. So
it really is.
I'm on a podcast last night, right?
While we're
had
on that, when I'm actually
my finger like that. So I was scratching my hand. I was scratching my finger, like, because, like, see when I let go of my tablet, right, it goes like that, right, or sometimes it'll fall back. So I have to steady it with my arm. So last night my finger was getting itchy, and the way I was scratching my finger, it looked almost like I was doing something in the background because of the way I had my gun. I was like, oops.
You need a proper stand.
I have got it in a stand. This stand's just aging.
You need to get onto Temu.
Listen, I'm spending too much in that Temu.
All right, I guess I got the footage downloaded. So let me just add this in, and then we're all set. I also checked the other videos. Everything else is working just fine. But this was one of the first. I think this was one of the first films of the tornado when it was shot. So hang on one second.
Does this one have sound?
No, there's no sound in this one. Because again, you have to remember, like I said, most of these films that were shot of these tornadoes back in the 70s were silent. So it's not a huge issue. Okay, it was, they just didn't have film quality back in those days.
Cool.
Okay. Can you guys see anything? Can you see the slide?
Nope.
Okay, hang on. Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I forgot to add the share to it. Let's try that again.
Third time lucky.
Yeah, take two.
Okay. All right, can you guys see it now?
Nope.
Nope.
Well, is it just a black screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, then that's right.
Oh.
Then it's supposed to be that way.
There we go.
Ta-da!
So here's the footage. So here we go. Check this out. Yeah, so this was probably shot about a good quarter of a mile away. I believe, yeah, I think this was when the tornado was just about to enter the Ohio border from Kentucky. Or oh wait, no, I take that back. This was when it was passing just west of Cincinnati.
That's where my brother goes on holiday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's just the way you see the clouds turning.
Yeah.
And then that bit there where you see the other cloud forming and heading up into the main part of the cone.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what it kind of reminds me? See, when you have a bottle of iron brew, when you have a bottle of juice and you start shaking it,
Yeah.
you just have that sort of form.
Look at
Do you know
this.
what reminds me of a candy floss machine?
Oh, really?
when you see the individual clusters of clouds coming up from the surface and heading up into the main cone, it just looks like when you sort of the sugar starts coming out as candy floss or cotton candy.
You know what? Now that you say that, I can actually kind of see that. Oh, look at the damage from that. Right in the neighborhood. I was going to say, oh, wait, no, it's still going. And it has that classic look to it again. Look at that. Just going right. Oh, look at that. She's going right through downtown Cincinnati. Going right through downtown Cincinnati.
Look at the force.
It's beginning to rope out. That's why it's starting to get smaller. That usually means that the tornado is starting to die off. However, and contrary to popular belief, when a tornado ropes out, people always think that the tornado has weakened and it's not as dangerous as it was at full strength. That is completely untrue. The tornado may be weakening and dying, but when the tornado ropes out, those winds are actually, as it gets smaller and smaller, those winds are actually increasing because it's just like when you push a straw or something like that. Like when you pinch a straw and, you get a little air that comes out. Same exact thing with a tornado. That wind is being pushed, and it's to an even higher wind speeds. In fact, some of the worst damage actually occurs as the tornado is dying than when it's at its mature stage, as they call it. Now, I got another piece of footage. There's no sound once again to this. It shows the aftermath, but it also shows another piece of footage of the tornado itself. And you could just see, here's the other piece of footage we got here. It goes back and forth. Look at that. That's definitely a wedge.
Oh my God. Look at the amount of cars that are on the road when the tornado is.
And the houses that were hit. It does go back to some of the same pieces of footage, but this was the best I could come up with that had that piece of footage to it. But yeah, with everybody just going through the traffic, it's just insane. I think it's actually showing the same footage over and over again. So we'll just carry on with it because again, it'll just show the same repeating films. Now this
Carol is asking if this is now. Carol Hernandez is asking if this is now.
What is now? I'm not really sure exactly what Carol's asking.
If you're wondering if it's here now, no, Carol. This is the super outbreak in 1974.
Yeah, this was from 50 years. You mean? Yeah, this was from 50 years ago. So this next video I have, I'm not sure if there's sound or not. I believe this was a news clip of the tornado itself. Yep. Here's the other piece of footage. this is from different angles. It's the aftermath once again when it was just ripping through the town.
Oh, God.
Yeah, from WLWT5. Okay, that must be the Cincinnati newscast. And I think, let's see here. Oh, this is the last piece of silent footage I have of this tornado. There is one other piece of footage I have after this one. There is sound of this one, but this one I actually had to take from a documentary, which I'll explain shortly after we watch this piece of footage. As you saw, this clip made a brief appearance in the previous video, but this one I'm showing in full detail. Hear a cat yelling.
I was beginning to think it was part of the video.
No,
She's
it's
like
not
that
the video.
She's like that from about 10 o'clock onwards.
She's old. She's about 13.
Oh wow!
Oh,
But
That people are still just like before. People are just walking through the parking lot, just staying there watching it.
again.
I think with a lot of people, it's morbid fascination, isn't it?
That, but also this was in an area where they don't often get tornadoes very frequently. So I think it got a lot of people's undivided attention
It's a
as
shock
long
and
as
awe.
they were. Yeah,
Shock
I mean,
and awe situation, isn't it?
yeah. Well,
Mm.
and they probably wanted to watch it as long as they were a good distance away from it, and if it wasn't
Yeah.
heading toward them. Now, I got one more piece of footage of this tornado. This was actually taken, like I said, this was taken from a documentary that was called the Lost Tapes. This aired on the Smithsonian Channel, and I got to tell you right now, this is probably one of the best documentaries that was made on the super outbreak because they show nothing but footage and archive footage and photographs of the entire event. And some of this footage had not aired since the actual outbreak, since 1974. And I found a new piece of footage of this tornado, actually, when it was at the dissipating stage as it was roping out. I tried looking for the separate footage itself, but I couldn't find it. So I'm going to show this segment. It's only about 3.5 minutes, so it's not going to be very long. But I just want to still say all rights, of course, go to the Smithsonian Channel. So here, check this out. Yeah, Lost Tapes tornado super outbreak.
Is this get sound?
Yeah, this one has sound. It starts off low, but you'll probably hear it as it gets louder. Yeah,
No problem, though.
and what's kind of eerie about this documentary is you can see these title cards that show up. There's no narrators in this documentary, so it's like it's one of those documentaries where you kind of feel like you're completely on your own, if you know what I mean, when it comes to those kind of dark style documentaries. Yeah, and it makes a good point, as it says right here. In the early 1970s, most meteorologists believe tornadoes will dissipate upon entering urban areas. Many residents feel safe within the city limits. This myth will soon be shattered.
Thank you very much, Ivan Winterberg of the National Weather Service, for standing by to update us on storm conditions during this report. Go ahead, Mr. Winterberg.
You might have to turn your volume up a
the
little
airport, it is a funnel cloud touching the ground.
bit. Here on. You guys hear it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Now,
31st tornado of the outbreak touches down near the Cincinnati airport. Another F5 with winds that can topple brick buildings.
trees flying around.
We are responding to tornado in Green Township. It is really big.
The tornado is on the ground 2 miles, I believe, northwest of the greater Cincinnati airport, scattering debris in all directions and heading in the direction of Hamilton County.
According to radar, it is moving about 50 miles an hour.
Is it still on the ground now?
Yes, sir.
In cases,
We've lost our power.
now you just lost your power.
Attention all cars, department, this station on emergency traffic only. You know what emergency, go ahead. Forward bridge down the road, you can see the running to the 913-914, we have a touchdown, 5800 west work, extensive damage, people screaming. Just rise, it just passed LJ, Wall Fleet, headed northeast towards 275.
From the airport parking lot, Bill Dirksing films the tornado as it crosses the Ohio River and enters the Cincinnati suburbs. The area is home to 1.8 million people. There's that same footage.
Oh my God.
Better quality.
Nancy Clark, who claims to actually be seeing a funnel cloud. Nancy?
Yes, son, it's moving right this way. I'm at Paddock Road and I-75. It seems to be moving eastwardly along I-75, about treetop level, I suppose. Over Clifton, maybe moving toward Norwood.
As the tornado tears through suburban Cincinnati, 300-mile-per-hour winds obliterate homes and toss vehicles.
Creek house exploded. 460 Creek in Plainfield is a shambles.
Oh my God.
962, go ahead. This whole neighborhood, Hutchinson Road, has been wiped out. Houses, levels, wires, poles, and power lines. Just send everything you can get over here. How many people are injured up there? We got about 40 or 50 people injured inside of town.
Hundreds of homes are destroyed in a path 20 miles long.
Out here in western Hamilton County, we just spotted a funnel cloud. I'm standing in my backyard now, out on Peregrine Drive, the Muddy Creek area, and I don't know whether the twister touched down or not. As I stand here now, the cloud has dissipated. It was very, very strong. The winds were very strong here.
Up there's the new footage.
The street from us, the flagpole
Dissipating.
was bending.
Quickly,
Oh,
Paul,
wow.
the whole system apparently heading north through the extreme western end of Hamilton County.
Yes, it is. But right now, the cloud has dissipated. There is nothing to it now at all.
All right, Paul, we're going to have to...
So that was the new piece of footage. And some of those pictures, okay, so some of those pictures I do have, which I'm going to be saving for the last of this one. At a further inland area of Sailor Park, the tornado maintained F5 intensity as numerous homes were swept away at a hilly area near a lake, with only bare slabs remaining. Other areas near Cincinnati also suffered extensive damage to structures. And National Weather Service surveyors noted that a pickup truck in this area was carried a half block over the roofs of 5 homes before being smashed to the ground.
Oh.
This tornado was witnessed on television by thousands of people as WCPO aired the tornado live during special news coverage of the tornadoes, as you just saw in that documentary clip. The F5 tornado weakened somewhat as it continued northeastward, passing through multiple Cincinnati neighborhoods and destroying numerous homes. Some of the worst affected areas were Bridgetown, Mack, Dent, and Delhi. Damage in Delhi was rated as high as F4. The second so-called tri-state tornado surprisingly only took 3 lives and injured 210, with 190 of the injuries were in Hamilton County, Ohio alone. This tornado dissipated west of White Oak at 5:53 p.m., lasting 23 minutes, but the same thunderstorm activity was responsible for 2 other tornado touchdowns in the Montgomery and Mason areas of Ohio. These won't, but unfortunately, while this was still going on, back in Kentucky, 10 minutes after the Cincinnati Sailor Park tornado was just beginning its journey through Indiana, another powerful tornado was developing further southwest in Greensburg, as you can see in this photograph. The tornado began in Greene County, roughly midway through Greensburg and Gresham at about 5:40 p.m., in which it quickly intensified. The tornado then proceeded to the northeast across almost the entire length of Taylor County as a half-mile wide F4 monster. It then passed through the unincorporated community of Elkhorn, where a farmer managed to capture several photos of the tornado as it raged through the Kentucky countryside. The F4 tornado then hit Mansville squarely. The entire town of Mansville was devastated after the tornado completely leveled all but one or two buildings. The only business that survived the tornado was the OK Grocery, which sat directly across the street from Penn's store. A total of 50 homes and 60 barns destroyed along the entire track, including 40 in Mansville, 7 that were leveled flat to the ground. Whoops. The F4 tornado will cut a 20-mile path through Greene and Taylor counties. The tornado dissipates after being on the ground for over 20 minutes. Thankfully, no deaths occurred, but there were 56 injuries. And I have 2 other additional photos of the tornado itself. This is when it continued to intensify, and this is when it was at its full strength. And look at that. It just went from like a white funnel to a wedge tornado.
Oh my God.
Just before we can start. Sorry, go ahead. What were we going to say, Lois?
Just what memorizes me when you're talking in that is the amount of tornadoes, as I said this before, and the lack of deaths. I'm memorized by while you'd expect for these tornadoes, you would expect a much higher death rate.
Definitely. Well, and this is where things do start getting. The next one that I have, this is when things became a lot more worse, and this one definitely took a number of lives. Strangely, once again, 10 minutes after the Mansville tornado dropped from the clouds, yet another tornado has developed further to the north of Kentucky. I don't have photographs this time, but this twister would become one of the largest recorded tornadoes in the outbreak, over 1 mile wide, and would carve a 46-mile path. This tornado first formed around 5:50 p.m., roughly 1.8 miles southwest of Harrisonville near Cat Ridge Road in extreme southeastern Shelby County. It quickly moved into northern Anderson County, where Tracy Road meets Waddy Road. Avonstoke was the only community in this county struck by the twister. Over 30 structures, including about 1/3 of the town's residences, were damaged or destroyed. From Avonstoke, the growing vortex flowed over a mile through open fields and periodic groves of trees in mainly unpopulated land. So at first, the tornado mainly stayed in open country, but then it approached a few properties along Highway 151 near the Anderson-Franklin County line. After leaving Highway 151, the twister traversed more farmland before striking a handful of homes and farm buildings along South Benson Road. From here, the funnel expanded further, racing northeast for about a mile through uninhabited land before steamrolling into the community of Evergreen. The western side of Evergreen was the first to suffer. Dozens of residences, many of which were brand new, were stripped of roofs and walls. Most of these ravaged homes were concentrated in the Coolbrook subdivision. Evergreen Baptist Church was beaten to a pulp by windborne debris. They had renovated the sanctuary and added office space only 4 years prior. All of this in an educational building were laid to ruins. 2 of the 3 buses at the church were destroyed, and the chassis of one was never found. Tragically, the first 2 fatalities occurred in a home off Evergreen Road. The tornado left Evergreen behind in seconds and continued to the northeast. The circulation was vast, with tornadic winds extending at a maximum of over 1,850 yards in diameter. Large sections of trees were raised as the twister advanced another mile to Jones Lane. In this area, a trailer court was disintegrated, along with a handful of nearby site-built homes. A vehicle junkyard or storage area was trashed, with at least dozens, if not close to 100 cars and pickup trucks dragged, rolled, bounced, or smashed together. Some were blown as much as 400 yards across a field. The F4 tornado next enveloped dozens of structures off of Lawrenceburg Road. On the southern side of the circulation, both Morton Buildings Inc. and Roy Peach Lumber Company sustained heavy damage. Lumber was found embedded in nearby fields, and trucks had to yank them out of the ground. The destruction was greatest around the old Harrodsburg Road, offshoot a few hundred yards to the north. Most of the 25 mobile homes at Williams Trailer Court were dashed to pieces, with 5 residents hospitalized. A handful of site-built houses lost roofs and/or walls. Large trees were entirely stripped and in some cases partially debarked. In the midst of this havoc was the Trigometer plant. The 14,000 square foot business produced small electric thermostats. The entire facility, unfortunately, was gutted, with exterior walls and some roofing stripped from the steel frame. The inside turned into a washing machine of appliances and materials. Just imagine like being inside that building with all that material flying around. That would all be deadly missiles at that point.
Oh God, without a shadow of doubt.
The twister charged beyond Lawrenceburg Road and continued without pause through a steep ravine directly over the bridge containing Interstate 64. 100 feet below, along the Cedar Run Creek, a few dwellings on Old Lawrenceburg Road, which resulted in 1 death, along with the surrounding forest, were shredded. Next, the twister steamrolled a large stretch of forest in the hilly terrain. It abruptly plunged 300 feet into a valley containing the mighty Kentucky River. The primary road here on the western shore is State Highway 1263, also called Big Eddy Road. Stretching from it along the bank is Travis Circle. The cluster of dwellings located here is known as Big Eddy, and it is situated 2.5 miles southeast of downtown Frankfort. The F4 tornado then moved northeast near Alton, in which 12 homes were destroyed, passing along the south and southeast edge of Frankfort. The tiny community, this was when it hit Frankfort, this was when it had the worst of the destruction, as the tiny community was engulfed by the circulation and its homes were leveled. The destruction here was the most intense of the entire track. Every structure was damaged. Despite most of the substantial site-built houses, some 2 stories, consisting of heavy cinder block construction, the majority were destroyed, and in several cases completely obliterated from their foundations, causing the death of a 73-year-old man. That brings the death toll now to 4. The vortex swept across the Kentucky River in moments, smashing a few site-built residences and disrupting a mining operation on the eastern bank. An isolated farm set back from Glens Creek Road was also trashed before the still mile-wide tornado rapidly ascended 300 feet out of the valley, across a stretch of woodland, and straight into the neighborhood of Inverness Estates. The roofs of roughly a half dozen dwellings were peeled off and smeared through a field, with other houses less critically damaged. Located off of Hanley Road, the Tierra Linda neighborhood was much more developed in 1974 than Inverness. Dozens of homes were put beyond repair as the twister raced by. In some cases, only a few walls of these large site-built dwellings remained. This stronger damage was concentrated along an almost north-south oriented corridor, about 3 to 4 homes across. Residences on either side of this zone were mostly limited to roofing loss, demonstrating the increasingly multi-vortex and erratic nature of this twister as time went on. The mile-plus-wide tornado roared into the community of Jet. Scores of buildings, from commercial to religious to residential, were indiscriminately destroyed. Capital City Church felt the brunt of the core winds of the twister. Mitchell's trailer park along Versailles Road was hit exceptionally hard. The twister injured 7, with 34 mobile homes were strewn about in a mangled mess. Miraculously, no one was killed. Jettown Plaza Shopping Center, nestled near Mitchell's trailer park, sustained heavy damage. Most storefront windows were blown out, and the roof was removed. Just beyond US 60 on Taylor Tot Road, the Twister encountered two very large industrial buildings owned by Bendix Westinghouse. A steel frame portion of one buckled and fell, with surrounding tractor trailers knocked over. Brick exterior fell apart on the second building. A nearby water tower was able to withstand the winds, and get this, even 50 years later, as of 2024, it's still there.
Really?
Yeah, it actually
That's
stood 260 mile an hour winds, and it's still there today, 50 years later. So the tornado churned over Leestown Road. The expansive size is demonstrated by the fact that 1,500 yards east of the aforementioned industrial structures was a third Bendix Westinghouse facility. It too was heavily damaged, with portions of the outer brick cladding as well as some roofing peeled off. A handful of isolated farms up to South Elkhorn Creek were hard hit, with most outbuildings collapsed or turned into kindling and houses stripped off of roofs. The tornado left Sorry, what were we going to say, Lois?
No, I thought you were finished. Sorry.
This might be the last slide of this tornado. So the tornado left the capital city region in turmoil as it made its way to the northeast into the community of Woodlake. As the twister crossed Georgetown Road, scattered farms were damaged or destroyed. Power lines along the route were down, surrounded by wooden planks from nearby homes. From Woodlake, the path curved further eastward than before, traversing over sparse farmland for another 2 miles before it crossed into Scott County, 3.5 miles southwest of Stamping Ground. By the time it reached the intersection of Rocky Branch Road and Woodlake Pike, intense straight-line winds accompanying the storm were beginning to cause as much damage as the twister itself. The swath of windborne destruction widened as it rapidly swept up Woodlake Road and across North Elkhorn Creek into a notable community. In the 1970s, Stamping Ground was populated by about 400 people. Hundreds of structures were left beyond repair in the community, including 240 homes. Among these residents were early settlement houses built in the 19th century. And I got to say, when I hear about early settlement houses or historic buildings or houses, it's just heartbreaking when they're destroyed by tornadoes, because you just can't make that up. You just can't rebuild it like modern day houses. Numerous farms were also left in tatters, where up to 350 barns were destroyed. An additional 150 to 200 head of livestock were killed. Every business and service suffered in some way. All 3 of Stamping Ground's churches were destroyed. The lone elementary school lost its upper floor and roof. 2 grocery stores on Main Street were significantly impacted, with one being leveled. The fire station, post office, bank, Masonic Lodge, and forestry division building, repair shops, and stores were also damaged. For 12 more miles to the northeast, the vicious wind continued. Trees were down, and scattered mobile homes fell to pieces as it passed Locust Fork Road. Near Long Lick Pike, the chaotic swath reached a tremendous 6 miles across. It was not until the community of Sadieville in northern Scott County that the destructive force finally dissipated at 6:28 p.m. after being on the ground for 40 minutes. 4 people were killed and 120 were injured. About 120 homes were damaged or destroyed near Frankfort, as were businesses and factories. So what did you want to say, Lois, just before I get to the next one?
What it was Vaughn says, while horrendous, you couldn't even imagine what all the residents and population was going through with something so massive and destructive. Bless them all. And 260 mile per winds, oh my God.
Yeah. Good to see you, Vonnie. But yeah, it's just incredible of what the winds could do. So once again, this is the final time we'll be going up to this state, but back in Ohio, 10 minutes after the Frankfurt tornado was tearing its way through northern Kentucky, the supercell that produced the Sailor Park Cincinnati tornado produced another F4 tornado not far from the town of Mason. And this is a photograph of it this time. I got a photo. The Mason tornado, which formed a few minutes after 6 p.m. in the northern Cincinnati subdivisions of Arlington Heights and Elmwood Place in Hamilton County. The tornado then proceeded to cut a 19-mile path through the town of Mason. The F4 tornado then hit Plainview Drive and Butler Warren Road at a few minutes after 6 p.m. After it left the neighborhood, it traveled up to Mason and cut a path directly through town. One Mason resident... Yeah, what's up?
Are you reading the slide? Because the slideshow isn't up.
Damn it, it did it again. I hate when it does this.
Sorry to interrupt you. It was just because I seen you reading and I'm like that. Is he talking to us or is he going back to reading his slide?
StreamYard, I don't know what it is going on, but I'm glad you told me about it. Here we go. There we go.
That's the boy.
Now we got it. So yeah, this is a picture of the tornado that went through Mason. And but that's not the only image though. One Mason resident managed to capture the tornado on film on his home movie camera. The tornado then leaves Mason and eventually dissipates. It would be the last in a series of 5 violent F4 to F5 tornadoes spawned by the same storm beginning in southwest Indiana. A much weaker tornado developed shortly afterwards in Warren County as an F2 tornado and began to carve through the Ohio countryside. The tornado destroyed several barns and mobile homes following its 9-mile rampage. Fortunately, no one died, but at least 10 people were injured. The storm that spawned this family of tornadoes weakened before moving through portions of the Miami Valley and the rest of southern Ohio. That's not the only image I have of this tornado. I have a second image of it. This is when it was up close. This is the one that hit Mason, Ohio.
Wow.
And then finally, this is the piece of footage where the Mason resident took film. It's not very long at all. It's only about 20 seconds. And if I'm correct, I think this is the last piece of film footage I have of any of the tornadoes. So this is when it was first developing just to the west of Mason. Okay, hang on. It's doing it again. I gotta fix this again. See, I don't get why sometimes this happens when I have these videos up.
See, this is why I don't like StreamYard.
Well, no, it's not StreamYard that caused the issue. It's a PowerPoint. It's a PowerPoint issue. Oh, you know what? Okay, I found out what. Okay, I know what happened. What happened was I deleted the video because it was in the trash area. But fortunately, I didn't permanently delete it, so I could bring it back.
So it's not a PowerPoint problem. It's a Nick problem.
Yes, it is.
I would love to see what else you keep in your trash bucket.
Okay, hang on. Let's get. Oh wait, yeah. Here we go. For just a second here. I'm never going to be able to get that out of my head now that you said that, Lois.
Well, I need to see what else is in your trash. Show it up. Come on. We're among friends.
We are live.
Yeah, just remember.
What we are.
No, it's just the typical junk.
It's good. It's a good job you're in black and white, Nick, because if you were in colour, your face would be going red by now.
Redder than my hair.
Okay, I don't know what's going on here. I'm not sure.
I must admit, I did come across a picture I am absolutely fascinated by.
Which picture? Okay, I'm trying to look. Oh yeah, that's the one that hit Louisville.
the car that's folded in half by the tree.
Yeah.
And you think
see.
having a car hurled at it at them sort of speeds, enough for it to be taken off the ground and thrown across into a tree like that, and yet the tree's just sitting there going, yeah, and the
Right, I
car's
was here
gone
first.
around
Yeah.
the tree.
It's really incredible, again, of what the power of a tornado can really do.
I mean, it's like you said about that lady's statement that she sent you about the bits of straw sticking out the tree trunks. You wouldn't have thought that a piece of straw being fairly soft against like a tree would be with such force. And it reminded me of a video of the Shaolin monks being able to throw a pin through a sheet of glass.
That's right. That's
and
right.
you think of it and you think the more speed there is, the firmer it becomes to be able to be embedded into a tree like that.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, it's just amazing what the power of what tornadoes can really do. Like I said, they could certainly exhibit some very bizarre behavior. Okay, I got the footage back. So now I'll be able to present it. So here we go.
Well, you remember, Nicky boy, to put up the right one and know the wrong one.
All right, you guys can see the image, right?
Yep.
Right, let's get the film rolling. Check it out. This is when it's developing right to the west of Mason.
No sound.
There's no sound this time. No sound. It actually did have that sound, but it had that type. No, it was just so loud, basically. So I took the sound out of it myself. Yeah, that was probably when the tornado was in its very early stages of development. So that's why you're not really seeing much right now. Now you can see it started. Yeah, now it's touching down on the ground.
I won't tell you what it looks like coming out the sky.
Look at the massive wall cloud just above it. Look at that. It's getting bigger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't very long footage. So, anyway, what happened here? Okay, I don't know how that happened, but anyways, while Ohio was experiencing the last of strong tornadoes throughout the state, another large tornado developed south in Kentucky, in Harrison County. The tornado, which was an F3, was the biggest and strongest tornado that ever hit the county. The tornado started in Harrison County at the Scott County line at about 6:20 p.m. The F3 tornado caused a lot of damage to homes and barns northeast of the city of Cynthiana. The tornado then came very close to where the Weber Sausage Company was on Carl Stevens Road. The tornado picked up some of the Weber Sausage tractor trucks like they were toys and threw them into the South Fork of the Licking River. In Harrison County, 55 homes and 150 barns were destroyed. No deaths were reported, but at least 27 people were injured. It then left the county on the northeastern side at Little Harrison at about 6:40 p.m., according to Cynthiana Democrat files before it lifted. It struck an area 18 miles long and from 1/2 to at times a ½ mile wide. And once again, I got a photo of it. It's a little bit hard to see, but you can see it's right off here to the left side. And I believe this was right next to the Harrison County School, which you can clearly tell by the school buses right here, but just passing right next to the school. And you can see already it's starting to get pretty dark outside. I got one more picture of the tornado too. This is an even brighter picture of it. Just even though this is all in black and white, look how black the sky looks.
Oh, God, look how bright the picture looks.
Yeah. It might be because the quality is different, but then again, you could still see, although it's crazy, the sky is black here, and then right below that, beyond that, I don't know if that's actually sky or if the clouds are just brighter over there, but it's bright on. You got light side and dark side over here. It's really bizarre.
I don't know. I think it's an issue with the picture because there looks like there's cables or something going across.
Yeah, it might be the case. That might
But
be.
when you get into that top right corner, the cables disappear completely.
Right. You could tell that these were taken in two different positions in two different areas. So that's why it looks different.
It just looks like there's a smudge or something on the picture itself.
Probably. Hold on one second. Having another issue again. This was not supposed to show up, but we'll get this fixed right away. I don't know how this happened again. Okay,
Don't worry about it. While you're doing that, I can look for comments.
Yeah, hang on one second here. I'm going to fix this real quick.
Ron says, we had a tornado last week in a local visit and damaged 26 properties, but no comparison in strength, and that was bad enough. Vaughn says that's a beast. And then she said, oh my God, they would have looked like matchbox tractors. I'm speaking Chinese, guys.
Look like matchbox tractors, yeah. Okay, I got it fixed. So here we go. So let's again take 3. So, anyways, now that we got this fixed. Oh wait, that's the wrong one. I was trying to get to the actual slide itself. Here we go. So once again, at the exact same time, the Cynthiana tornado carved its way through the town. In Richmond, an hour south, another more powerful tornado has touched down, and by now it has gotten dark. This deadly nighttime F4 tornado that developed later in the evening at 6:20 p.m. during the outbreak and produced damage on the outskirts of Richmond. It then moved northeast from near Hackley and Cottonburg, passing just north of Richmond. Fortunately, it stayed mostly out in rural areas, narrowly missing the central sections of Richmond on its 31-mile path. Still, the tornado reduced F4 damage near Richmond. These photos, I'm going to fast forward, were taken from the Commonwealth Hall on the campus of Eastern Kentucky University. The tornado was about 9 miles. The tornado was about 9 miles away from the photographer. The tornado then lifted east of Mount Sterling. The tornado killed 7 people and injured 28. About 100 people were left homeless in Clark County. Amazing. Once again, tornado going on the outskirts of Richmond, and there's all these cars just driving through. And it's getting close to dark now.
Mm-hmm. Look how bright it is too.
And that's not all of them. There's 2 up. Here are the other. There were, as far as we know, only 3 pictures taken of this tornado. So here it is as it's going through more of the outskirts. And then here is where it was kind of near the central section of Richmond. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Something tells me that is not sunlight. I think that's lightning that's illuminating the nighttime tornado. Just really incredible, though. Although it looks like from where it's at right now, because, again, it still stayed out in rural areas, I think, where it's at. Beyond here, as you could see, it looks more rural and empty, so I don't think it's actually hitting anything. I mean, it did, but at the time when these photos were taken, it wasn't hitting any structures. Oh, so hang on one second. I got another issue once again. Hang on a second. I don't know. Again, I was just going through these real quick, so let's fix that again. Give me one second here. I forgot to add the effect for this one. There we go. That's the reason why it wasn't working.
See you, Nicky boy. Right now, we've got a comment. Scary. Was this during the US tornado season?
Yeah, this happened on April 3rd. So obviously, when it comes to the month of April, it produces some of the most devastating and deadliest tornadoes throughout the year. So it's really no surprise at all. I'm going to share it the other way that we used to, because from this point on, there's not going to be any more videos that I have that have sound to it. So it's no longer necessary to broadcast the way I did it before. I mean, to share it the way I did before. But we're just going to go through a few more slides. So Due to the limited technology, meteorologists are confounded by the severity of the outbreak. They were able to forecast the severe weather, and this goes back to what you were talking about, Wayne, about when it came to weather forecasting, especially back then. They were able to forecast the severe weather, but they can't see the tornadoes on their radar, so they can't issue advance warnings. In many cases, their warnings come after tornadoes have already hit the ground. Communication networks are also limited. The National Weather Service still relies on an old teletype system, which that was another way of how they tried to issue warnings back in those days, because as it says, they were able to type on the teletype machine and it created a little ticker tape, and they could put the tape in a little box and it would send to the news media. But the problem with those teletype machines, I mean, they were very, very, work intense. If a piece of ticker tape, happened to tear, you would have to start all over in an effort to get the warning out. So that was a real serious problem for forecasting in those days. The sheer messages put out on April 3rd overwhelms the network and jams teletype machines. The result is disastrous. Warnings come too late. Some messages never get through. At the National Weather Service office in Louisville, meteorologist John Burke erupts in frustration and anger. Now, if you remember, John Burke, he was the guy, Lois, that we listened to on the radio broadcast last week. Yeah. What a former staff member said when he erupted in frustration, he said he took a grease pencil and just slammed it down right on the table. And he says, we're not doing a damn bit of good. We try to put these warnings out. People are still getting killed.
No.
But, and like I said, unfortunately, it's not over still. As nightfall approaches, a new wave of tornadoes starts sweeping the south. The storms produced the first deadly tornadoes in Alabama during the early evening hours. Excuse me, I forgot this one. As the cluster of thunderstorms were crossing much of the Ohio Valley in northern Indiana, additional storms developed much further just southeast of the Mississippi River into the Tennessee Valley and Mississippi. But yeah, a new wave of tornadoes starts sweeping the south. In Alabama, they slashed through Tanner, Harvest, Jasper, Hewitt, Lafayette, heading north towards Huntsville. At 6 p.m., near Huntsville in Limestone County, Civil Defense Director Spencer Black is aware of the disaster unfolding east of the Mississippi River and knows the stormy weather is headed their way. I mean, he later said in an interview that, after hearing all these reports of tornadoes, that, it's in Tennessee, it's in Mississippi, and he remembered that he heard on the radio, they said by 6 o'clock this evening, you will experience the most severe weather that Limestone County has ever experienced. The Civil Defense Office is ill-equipped for disaster. They had 2 radios, one with the county government and one with the sheriff's department. They didn't have anything associated with storm spotting, as they were one of the poorest prepared counties in the state at the time. Limestone County has no tornado sirens. Most of the small town of Tanner, west of Huntsville in Limestone County, was destroyed when 2 F5 tornadoes struck the community, get this, 30 minutes apart. The first tornado formed at 6:30 p.m. in Lawrence County and ended just over 90 minutes later in Madison County. The tornado first touched down near the small community of Mount Hope and begins tearing through the Alabama countryside. It then tracked into Mount Moriah, where the tornado rapidly intensified and swept away homes and hurled fleeing vehicles, where a family of 6 were killed. Further along the track, many homes were swept away near Moulton. A chemical plant was destroyed and a water pump was completely lifted out of a well house along SR 157 in this area. In one case, the destruction was so complete that a witness reported the largest recognizable objects among scattered debris from an obliterated house were some bed springs. The tornado crossed into Morgan County, causing additional destruction in rural areas. near Hillsborough and Trinity. Crossing the Tennessee River into Limestone County as a large water spout, the tornado flattened a 3/4 mile wide swath of trees on the opposite bank at about 7:05 p.m. Intense ground scouring occurred in this area as reddish soil was found dug up and plastered against trees. The storm then slammed into Tanner, where many homes were swept away, vehicles were tossed, shrubbery were debarked, Lawson's trailer park sustained major damage, and pavement were scoured from roads outside of town. The tornado then continued into Madison County and struck the Capshaw and Harvest areas. Numerous homes in Harvest and surrounding rural areas of the county were swept completely away and scattered, and extensive windrowing of debris was noted. Additional severe damage occurred, including large metal power line truss towers that were ripped from their anchors and thrown. One of the towers was completely missing after the tornado and was never located. A bathtub from one residence was found deeply embedded into the ground. Eyewitnesses reported that the tornado was quite large and demolished everything along its 52-mile-long path. Past Harvest, the tornado abruptly dissipated northeast of town at 7:45 p.m., having a peak width of 500 yards and being on the ground for 90 minutes. Reports at the time described it as big and powerful and taking everything in its path. And this was, okay, I don't know where that came from, but as far as I know, this was recently discovered. This is the, this was something I was going to say for later. I'm just going to go, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, hang on one second. Where is, oh, here we go. Okay, I don't know what happened here, but it took me all the way to the end. I'm thinking, wait a second. Something's not right here. Okay, hang on. Okay, we're good. We're good. Can you guys see the slideshow itself once again? Is it black?
Just black.
Okay. So this was recently discovered. This is perhaps the only known photo of the Tanner tornado. Check it out. Got it right here along the edge. And I believe it goes right over here, so about 500 yards wide.
Still black.
Still black?
Still
Okay.
black. There's nothing there.
Okay, hold on.
It just says end of flight.
Oh, damn it. Again, this whole thing with StreamYard. All right, let's try. Here we go. Now you guys can see it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So as I said, you got it right here along the edge. And then right here on the left is the full tornado itself.
Oh my God.
And this, unfortunately, this is also the last image I have of any of the tornadoes from the outbreak. Because like I said, at this point, this is when it was starting to get dark outside. So this was the last picture I was able to find from the super outbreak. So while the Tanner tornado was causing devastation in the northwesternmost corner of the state, another supercell crossing the Mississippi-Alabama state line produced another violent tornado that touched down in Pickens County before heading northeast for nearly 2 hours towards the Jasper area, causing major damage to its downtown as the F4 storm struck. Damage was reported in Coleman from the storm before it lifted. The Jasper tornado first touched down near Aliceville at 6:35 p.m., producing scattered damage as it tracked northeastward. The damage became more intense and continuous as the tornado entered Tuscaloosa County. The tornado continued to strengthen north of Berry, and 2 people were killed at Berry and Fayette County near the Walker County line when a church was destroyed. 34 people were injured across Pickens and Fayette. The tornado entered Walker County, reaching its maximum intensity of F4 southwest of Jasper before moving through town at an F2 to F3 strength. The tornado tore directly through downtown Jasper at 6:57 p.m., resulting in severe damage and at least 100 injuries. Numerous buildings and storefronts were heavily damaged in downtown Jasper, and many streets were blocked with trees and power lines. The Walker County Courthouse and the Jasper City Hall sustained major damage, and a new fire station was completely leveled. The firemen on duty at the time took shelter in a nearby large culvert and survived without injury. The Walker County Library and the Jasper First Methodist Church were also damaged. After a power station on the western side of town was struck initially, the clock on the courthouse stopped at 7:55 p.m., where it remained for months following the tornado. Just that hand stuck at that part of the clock, which is just incredible. Again, another example of the bizarre behavior. The F4 tornado continued northeast, entering Coleman County and striking the communities of Brushy Pond, Trimble, and Grandview. It then crossed Lewis Smith Lake and moved across the south side of Coleman at 7:40 p.m. Multiple homes and shopping centers were heavily damaged or destroyed in the area, resulting in 1 death and 36 injuries. At Walker College, dozens of uprooted trees resulted in considerable damage to sidewalks and underground utility lines, along with damaged buildings and destroyed vehicles. Although no one was killed in Walker County, 102 people were injured. It then entered the city of Coleman around 9 p.m. at F2 intensity, severely damaging or destroying numerous homes, an apartment complex, a Big K department store, and the East Park shopping center. The tornado passed through the Larkwood neighborhood before finally dissipating. Oh, wait, now it says 9 p.m. That's kind of weird. Before finally dissipating northeast of town a short time later at 8:20 p.m. But now it's saying around 9 p.m. That's kind of odd. In total, the storm, I'll have to do research and see if I can get that fixed. In total, the storm took 3 lives, but injured 150 residents of Jasper or Coleman. 500 buildings were destroyed, with nearly 400 other buildings severely damaged. At the same time, a third supercell was crossing the state line near the track of the previous 2. I don't think we're going to have time to really cover that one. We'll save it for the final part of next week, but I will cover one final tornado before we end it tonight, because I said about Tanner and Harvest.
Yep.
This is where things got even crazy. I mean, you guys are going to find this hard to believe. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a second. Okay, make that 2, actually. Back up in Indiana, the last of tornadoes for the state begin to strike. A tornado touched down near southeastern Tipton County at 6:45 p.m. It left a skipping path of destruction to 1 mile northwest of Kingsland, where it withdrew into the cloud at about 7:20 p.m. It then moved northeast from near Windfall, passing just west of Liberty to Swayze. Many homes and mobile homes were damaged or destroyed, especially at Swayze, where most of the injuries occurred. The tornado in F2 moved northeast from near Highway 218 southwest of Warren, destroying 16 commercial buildings in the town of Plumtree. The F2 tornado then traveled 42 miles before lifting, ending 2 miles east of Sweetser after being on the ground for 35 minutes. No one was killed, but at least 12 people were injured. Most of the damage occurred at Swayze and Plumtree. 5 minutes after the Swayze tornado began, another tornado touchdown began its path northeast of Albion in Noble County at about 6:50 p.m. Major damage occurred at several Summer Lake Resort areas in northeastern Indiana. The tornado, this time rated an F3, then moved northeast for length of northeast for the length was 39 miles, and at its widest point was over 700 yards wide. The tornado crossed just near Angola, and shortly after dissipated in a downburst north of Clear Lake, close to the Indiana-Michigan border at 7:35 p.m., after being on the ground for 45 minutes. 5 people were killed as a result of this F3 tornado, and 53 others were injured. At Sylvian Lake, a man was killed in his island home. The 4 victims, tragically 2 of which were a mother and child, were all killed in mobile homes and trailers. A couple drowned as their mobile home was thrown into Turkey Lake. While the tornado was moving northeast toward Angola, a smaller and weaker tornado touched down about 2 miles southeast of North Manchester at 7:10 p.m. It began 3 miles southeast of North Manchester in Wabash County, but due to being primarily over rural areas, caused no damage being rated an F1 and lifted 5 miles east-northeast of North Manchester at 7:40 p.m. Path width was 50 to 75 yards wide, and length was 7 miles. Fortunately, there were no reported deaths or people treated at hospitals. Property damage was estimated about $200,000, however. So, okay, yeah, this is probably the last 2 slides I got here. All right, so while Harvest, this is what I wanted to get to. While Harvest and Jasper were suffering the wrath of 2 violent tornadoes in Alabama and Swayze, Angola, and North Manchester were experiencing the last of tornadoes in Indiana, activity really started firing up through northern Tennessee. At 7:15 p.m., another tornado, yet another F4, touched down and moved northeast from Macedonia in northwest White County. It then passed 6 miles southeast of Cookeville and lifting 3 miles northeast of Hanging Limb in South Overton County. The tornado destroyed as many as 50 homes near Cookeville, killing 9 people in the vicinity. 51 others were injured. One person injured in the tornado tragically died exactly a month later, bringing the total number to 10. A rarity today, but common at the turn of the century. The F4 tornado traveled a 32-mile path with a width of 700 yards before dissipating south of Windleton. At the same time the Angleton tornado was on the ground at 8:15 p.m., a new tornado, an F2, touched down and moved northeast from 3 miles southwest of Bluffton. It then passed just southeast and east of that town and ending 1 mile west of Peterson. The tornado then dissipates after traveling 10 miles. 8 homes were torn apart and 2 trailers were destroyed 6 miles northeast of Bluffton. Shortly after the Bluffton tornado lifted, yet another twister developed just to the northeast of the town and took a very similar path. This tornado, an F1, split from the first northeast of Marion and left a skipping path to Decatur. Local newspapers reported a steeple was blown off of a Decatur church and through the roof of a junior high school. They also reported the roof being torn off Belmont's high school auditorium and all the trees in front of the Adams County Courthouse being taken down. Most of the damage occurred where it crossed Highway 124 east of Bluffton. 8 homes suffered extensive damage and 2 mobile homes were destroyed. It then lifted on the northwest outskirts of Decatur after about 14 miles on the ground at about 7:45 p.m. Okay, so this is the last one. Okay, so 15 miles after the Cookeville tornado developed at 7:30 p.m., 15 minutes, excuse me, not miles, another tornado touchdown moved northeast near Fakes through southeast Moodyville and Caney Creek in Tennessee, and east of Chanute. The tornado, yet once again an F4, hidden in the dark and being over 300 yards wide, plied right through the heart of Moodyville as homes were leveled. 5 people were killed by this tornado. All 5 deaths were in 2 of 12 homes that were destroyed. 4 of them died in one home. At least 6 people were injured. The F4 tornado then caused a 13-mile path crossing into Kentucky. The funnel then lifted west of Mount Pisgah. And okay, so so I said this was this is what I was trying to get to. I'm sorry, I apologize, guys.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, so this is really the final one. This is what I really want to get to. So meanwhile, back in Tanner and Harvest, a little over 30 minutes after the initial F5 tornado struck the community, and while rescue efforts were underway to look for people under the destroyed structures, this is going to be chilling to tell. Few were aware that another violent tornado would strike the area right on the heels of the first. The path of the second tornado, which formed at 7:35 p.m., was 83 miles in length, also an F5, and had a peak of width of 500 yards. And the storm formed along the North Bank Tennessee River, less than a mile from the path of the earlier storm, with much of its path very closely paralleling its predecessor as it tore through Limestone and Madison County. The Tanner community was again particularly devastated. No one at Lawson's trailer court sees that a second F5 is now headed their way. Reporter Bill Dunavat is forced to take cover in a ditch along with many others. Tanner was the first community to be hit, and many structures that were left standing after the first tornado were destroyed in the second one. Some areas were also hit by both tornadoes. Oh, and this story, this account is just insane. Get this. A man injured at Lawson's trailer park in the first tornado was taken to a church in the area for his safety. Unfortunately, it was directly in the path of the second tornado, which collapsed.
Oh, wow.
It collapsed, killing him. After devastating what was left of Tanner, the tornado continued across rural Limestone County and into Madison County, where the communities of Capshaw and Harvest were devastated once again. The F5 tornado also produced significant damage in the Athens area. Numerous homes throughout Madison County were swept completely away with extensive windrowing of debris noted once again. Past Harvest, the tornado swept away multiple additional homes in the Hazel Green area. The tornado continued carving along its 85-mile path northeastward through rural portions of Madison County before crossing into Tennessee, where major damage and 6 deaths occurred in Franklin and Lincoln counties before the tornado dissipated in Coffee County at 9:05 p.m. 16 people were killed by the second tornado. 2 of the fatalities in Tennessee occurred when Two of the fatalities occurred in Tennessee when a church was destroyed during service. But
Oh my God.
now, if you combine the 2 tornadoes together, the 2 tornadoes destroy or damage over 1,000 houses and buildings, 200 mobile homes, and numerous other outbuildings, automobiles, power lines, and trees were completely demolished or heavily damaged. The death toll combined from the 2 tornadoes was over 45 people, and over 400
Really?
and over 400 were injured. Most of the fatalities occurred in and around the Tanner area. The most recent official National Weather Service records show that both of the Tanner tornadoes were rated F5. However, even still today, the rating of the second Tanner tornado is still disputed by some scientists. Analysis in one publication estimates F3 to F4 damage along the entirety of the second storm's path. This was the second state to have been hit by more than 2 F5 tornadoes during the 1974 outbreak. I mean, Tanner and Harvest had back-to-back tornadoes that night, and it's not unusual for some storm systems where it could produce another tornado that could cross almost the exact same path as the first one did.
I think that's nuts. I
It
think
really
that
is.
it was like, wow. Comments.
Yeah, let's look at the comments quickly because unfortunately we do have to end things. I thought we were going to get to the end. I literally only had like five or six more tornadoes to cover, but unfortunately we're not going to be able to bring it to an end. So we'll have to wait for this will definitely be the final part, but let's get to the comments real quick. That's right. The telex system was next to useless. I used to operate one in the 70s.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Okay, so OMG, I don't understand why they have no storm or tornado warning system, especially having a regular tornado system. Very strange. I would have thought that would have been a top priority to prepare and protect the communities. She's absolutely right, because a state like Mississippi or Alabama, they have some of the worst tornadoes. I mean, sometimes it's bad, if not even worse than what you would usually get like in Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, or Texas. And Vaughn also said, it must have felt never ending. OMG, poor man, devastating, horrifying, unimaginable.
It's a sad situation.
Well, considering, again, 2 tornadoes striking the exact same area, I mean, it must have definitely been a nightmare for everybody.
Oh God, without a shadow of a doubt, I really can't imagine.
Yeah, it's nonetheless. I mean, it was definitely terrible. It really was. But unfortunately, like I said, I hate to do this, but we do have to end this. But do you guys have any other questions or anything before we end things for now?
No, not at all. It's been a
Okay.
pleasure.
Yeah, I know I did most of the talking, but I really appreciate you guys coming on. I really do.
I just find it amazing, obviously, with the old ticker tape system. You know, you'd have thought the only other way you've got is like telephone communication, which obviously if tornadoes just rip through the place, the telephone lines aren't going to be great.
No.
The only other option there is Morse code with the military. And then it's just a case of the layers of communication. It's got to get from one place to the other, to the other, and to the other, and so on until the right people have got the message and then get the message out there. And like you said earlier on, by the time the message finally gets through, the tornado has already hit the ground and it's already traveled set distance.
Yeah.
And it's too late to tell anybody. Well, obviously now the technology has progressed so much, you can now roughly gauge what's coming by looking at the clouds. The clouds are giving you that warning. Luckily now you've got that privilege of being able to estimate when that's going to happen. So you put the tornado warning out. So people are then on their guards. But back then you wouldn't have had that privilege.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was again, it must have just been very, very difficult, for people to, have to go through that frustration.
I think also the worst part is obviously in that situation, during the daytime, you would have people out there and they'd be acting as spotters. The second they see the tornado, the warning can go out. But at nighttime, without actually having lightning illuminating the tornado, a spotter is pretty much useless at night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I've always said a lot of times, and that almost happened with us last night. Like when it comes to tornadoes, I mean, in the daylight, you can at least see what's coming at you, but at nighttime, it's almost impossible to see. I mean, unless you're still somehow quite a distance away from it, and you can see it lightning or power flashes, you're not going to be able to see it coming. And the only warning then, of course, is that again, that roar, that train-like roar. And the other crazy thing is that even with lightning or power flashes, even then that's not even going to help, because a lot of tornadoes after dark are often rain wrapped. So sometimes you can't even see it at all, even with lightning. And of course, some of these tornadoes were so large that eyewitnesses at times even said not even lightning could illuminate them. It was just simply, there were just times where it was literally too wide. It looked like a giant wall.
Very, very similar to the recent storms they've had in Dubai. So much rain had fallen, and there was one guy, he was in one of the hotels, and he was actually doing a live TikTok feed, and the lightning was constant. And because of the lightning flashes being so constant, it was reflecting off all the water that was coming down. So of course it was not only was it a wall of water, it was a wall of light as well. And he said from his view on the balcony, his view is literally the desert just outside the city. So all he could see was this big wall of light and water coming down in front of him. And like with that situation, the same thing. All you would have seen was this big wall of water coming, not necessarily knowing that there's an F5 tornado sitting behind it.
Exactly. And Vaughn just said real quick, exactly, Wayne, but years and years ago, they had alarms, which the man controlled to warn people. And that's what I was saying about the civil defense that they had at that time.
But then again, that would rely on the ticker tape system and spotters.
Yep.
And if that warning doesn't get out in time, that's when you have loss of life.
Unfortunately. And especially when you had, again, with Tanner and Harvest that were struck by two F5 tornadoes like 30 minutes apart. That's basically a forecaster's worst nightmare. And it killed a whole bunch of people. I mean, obviously they weren't I know you weren't here for parts 1 and 2, but wasn't necessarily the first tornadoes that killed people in, but it definitely was not. I mean, but it was the first set of tornadoes that struck the state of Alabama where they both killed a lot of people.
I mean, that one, that the death toll on that one would have been higher because the first tornado would have come through. It would have severely affected the communications. Rescue efforts would have already gone underway to help the people that were hit by the first tornado. The second tornado then comes in while everybody's doing a recovery operation, not realizing that it's coming.
Exactly. And it's dark outside, so they can't see it coming. I mean, it's like, and even if there were sirens, the sirens are down. You can't, it's just like the sirens are down. You can't, you're out in the open. You don't even know it's coming. Communication's just been cut out. You're wondering what the heck just happened to you. Yeah. And all of a sudden, here comes another tornado directly from where you took shelter. And, even if they had some kind of warning system, they're telling the rescuers and survivors that you guys need to take shelter immediately. There's another one coming.
Yeah.
What shelter? The shelter's gone.
Exactly. So, there is nowhere to hide.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, your only option at that point, literally, even though they tell you not to, your only chances of survival is you had to run away, whether it was on foot or if your car was spared. Your only chances of survival then was running away, and of course, obviously, that wasn't going to work, especially if the tornado is moving so fast.
Yeah.
So it's very scary. Absolutely, it really is. I just reviewed just to see how many slides I had left of the actual tornado event before the aftermath. There's only about, let's see here, 10, only 14 slides left. So we're getting to the end just before we get to the aftermath. So I got a good feeling we are going to be able to officially end this for good next week. But we got through it. But we got through a good majority of the. Well, I was also explaining to. I mean, it may seem like a lot, Wayne, but what I'm covering is obviously since there were so many, we're not covering exactly every single one because first of all, it would have taken even longer to get through all of them, and secondly, there's also some of the tornadoes. There's no documented information on them. Either they were either not very much documented or followed or gave as much attention, or that information has been lost. So we're only really focusing on just basically the most notorious tornadoes of the outbreak. And also, Vaughn, just to answer your question too, he's asking how many tornadoes occurred in total. I'm going to save that for next week so I can kind of surprise you because, like I said, we only got 14 slides left, and I'll have the full answer for you guys next week. But I hope you guys enjoyed it, though, as always.
Well, I was going to say there is one tornado that I'm quite interested in, but I'm going to leave that for you till next week because I've got a sneaky suspicion you might include that next week.
Vaughn said I should write a book on the subject. I've actually had thoughts about it. I mean, truth be told, there have been a number of books written about the super outbreak, but the way I really kind of put it together in full detail, I mean, who knows? Maybe I could write a book on the super outbreak because it's been, like I said before, this has been a huge fascination for me since I was a young kid.
That would be amazing if you did. That really would be amazing.
It would be. But anyways, I gotta end this because I know one of the other networks there's a show going on right now. So again, Lois, Wayne, once again, thank you guys so much for coming on. So
you're very welcome.
This was another good crossover with To the Grave and Back and Nick Files. So like I said, next week should be the final part, and also like where I'll be able to show that film. But we just got 14 more slides to go about the tornado event, and hopefully we should be able to end it by then. So this was definitely well worth the work.
Definitely. Does that mean after next? Does that mean next week I'm sacked?
Probably for one final time. This should be it then.
All right. That's me sacked on a Wednesday.
Yeah, this should, like I said, I don't think it's going to go as, again, we got through the most major parts, so that's why I was also going a little bit fast on the slideshows, because I didn't want to make this into like several multiple parts. I wanted to basically make sure we made part 4 the final part of the slideshow, so that's why I was going a little bit fast.
That's fine.
But anyways, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see some of you guys, of course, tomorrow for the Gravenback, which should be a really good show. We're going to be having possibly a few other shows joining us for we were going to be talking about serial killings inspiring horror films. Is that correct?
Nope, we are talking about John Kramer and the Saw movies, looking for a psychological point of view. It's
You're
okay,
right.
Nicholas. I forgive you.
I got the two things mixed up, so I'll correct that. So yeah, we'll see some of you guys tomorrow. But if you guys want to, as like I always say, if you guys want to wait for part 4 of the Super Outbreak, the 4th and final part, I guess we'll see some of you guys next week. So you guys all have a great night.
Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Good night, everyone.